Welcome to Conscious TV. I'm Renate McNay, and my guest today is Susanne Marie. Hello, Susanne.
Hello, Renate.
Susanne is a mystic, a spiritual mentor and guide, and she's currently writing a book.
That's right.
I'm very much looking forward to that. And this is my second interview with Susanne, and in her first interview, she spoke about her awakening and the challenges she faced raising a family and children and being at the same time on her spiritual path. And you lived already then in unity consciousness.
Right.
Yeah. So you had two major awakenings beside all the other things which happened to you. But then something else happened, which she never anticipated, and that's what the interview is going to be about.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So maybe first, you just tell us, Susanne, the first big awakening was emptiness of mind.
Right.
And what does that mean?
The way I like to describe it is that the mind woke up to itself, and that it saw its true nature.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was looking for itself, and in the process of inquiry, deep inquiry, it was searching for itself.
So inquiry by asking, who am I?
In a natural kind of way. Yeah, it was wondering about its nature.
Yeah. So your attention was always around awakening.
Pretty much since I was a teenager, young adult, but I didn't know those words at the time. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I was longing to return home. Yeah.
Which you experienced as a child pretty long.
Right. I was, what I later discovered is called unity consciousness as a child. Yeah. And I think many of us are in that oneness as children.
Yes.
Yeah. And for me, it lasted until I was about 7 or 8 years old, and then it started to fade. And I spoke about that in our first interview.
Yes.
And it was so dramatic and so painful for me that I just immediately started to look for it, what I had lost. Mm-hmm. And so I was looking for it in various ways, looking for my, trying to remember myself. And I found it here and there in nature and with certain people who I feel probably were what we call awake. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, and you started also doing long meditations and
in my early 20s, I studied yoga and started to meditate. And once I started to meditate, I became hooked. And would meditate for hours a day.
Yes. So the first stage is, as I understand it, the mind waking up to itself. You know who you are.
Right.
You know that you are not the body. You know you are bigger than everything else. Would you translate it into that?
Well, I'm not saying that's not how I would translate it, but maybe what I would say is that the searching for myself stopped when there's that which was searching rested on what its nature is, which is, you could call an empty center.
Yeah. So
once it rested on that empty center, it just stopped, like being in a still pond. There was nowhere else to go.
And how did you manage to rest all the time on this empty center? Was that through praxis or?
Well, I mean, sometimes people dip in and out, right? Mm-hmm. And I had dipped in and out. But I think once you kind of dive in, you kind of, you merge into that. That has been searching, the me, that movement of mind that hasn't been at peace.
Yes.
And has been looking for itself everywhere. Both within and without in in the world,
yes,
and even looking for itself within spiritual practice.
mm-hmm.
So it landed back into that which was looking, it kind of like two arrows meeting. And so once that is really done, it's over. That looking, that movement of mind stops and it rests eternally. There's no reason for it to start back up.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And then there was the second awakening to unity consciousness.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So tell us what that means.
Well, unity consciousness to me is an awakening of the heart, and the heart realizing its true nature. So the mind realizes its true nature.
Yeah.
And it realizes that it is. And the heart, when it opens up and has an awakening, it realizes that it is that. It is everything in creation. So that is, what we call unity. And unity there's a long trajectory that is the field of unity. There are many, many landscapes that you traverse. One traverses during the journey of unity.
So when you are in unity, how do you perceive the world, yourself?
So unity is to me, it's kind of like a deepening process. So it's kind of like imagine that a drop is returning to the ocean, and it falls into the ocean, a single drop, the separate self drop, and it falls into the ocean, and then it merges and becomes one with the sea. But maybe at first it still has a lingering trace, a bit of a memory of having been a separate something. And so the journey of completely dissolving and without any kind of previous navigation of how it navigated as a separate somebody, that dissolving is the whole kind of process of integrating, and what many people call embodiment.
Mm.
Yeah.
And from the first awakening of the mind, how did the mind drop into the heart? What did you do?
Well, the mind realizes that it is, like I am.
Yeah.
You've heard that, right? I am.
Yeah.
And so it's stopped. It's just completely stopped and rests in the I am.
So the mind surrenders?
The mind surrenders and is at peace in its nature. So it's relieved, actually.
Yeah.
To not have to, continue searching for itself. Yeah. And so that it rests in the I am. And the higher functioning of mind can start to take place when it's not searching for itself. There's much more available. And then what comes next is I am that, which is I am everything. I'm not just I am, the stillness and the empty center of existence, which they've proven scientifically, right? That everything's inherently empty. So the mind realizes that for itself. And then the understanding deepens. It's kind of like it deepens into the human body. So it goes from mind, and my experience is that, some people have different ways that this occurs, but this is the way it happened for me, is that mind became illuminated to itself, and then the heart opened and realized its true nature, which is all of creation.
Yeah, and all the time, Susanne, you were living in the world, you had a job, and you raised children, and I'm sure that was not easy at times.
Right.
And I also understand that you didn't have an easy life. You really had to earn money. There wasn't anybody who supported you. And so how did you cope? What helped you to cope?
Realization and awakenings and all that doesn't make your life per se easier. It's not like it gives you a magic, pill that, or, you know, a wand, a magic wand that everything magically becomes better and easy. But it does soften. It softens things, you know. It makes it easier in the sense of how one deals with it. And especially when you're slowed down inside from realizations, they put you more in the present moment. Mm-hmm. The mind is not kicking up scary scenarios of what could happen.
That's true.
Right?
Yeah.
So, yes, I was taking care of the kids on my own primarily, and I didn't have much money, but it didn't go into the future, into fear of what could happen. So it was a saving grace, you know, to have the simplicity of realization, be living in, you know, inside.
Yes.
It kind of slowed things down and made me more present to the moment, present to the kids, and actually, in unity is a beautiful, it's a delightful place.
I know
to
you
be.
said you had such a good time living in unity.
Did. Yeah, yeah, it's a beautiful
looking
thing.
from the perspective where you are now. Yes.
Well, even during the unity, during the unity, it was, you know, that's a time of a lot of ahas, you know, and realizing that when you open to realizing that you're that, it's a process. It's not like it all happens at once. It happens bit by bit. And it was, for me, it was this kind of, I'm this, oh, this too, I'm this too.
So is it that you see yourself in everything else? Or is it more like a knowingness that that's me and that's me?
It isn't.
Where are you?
Yeah, right. Now?
No? Then in unity.
Then.
Where, yeah, from where are you looking?
So looking through the eyes of unity is looking through the eyes of God seeing itself.
Yeah.
Right? But like I said, so this is something that I think is important for people to realize, is that it's a process of gaining deeper, ever deeper understanding of what it means to be the totality. Because there's so many things that are wishing to be included along the way. You know, I actually call it the path of inclusion during that time. So things get included. So, like I said earlier, it's just this too would come up like an emotion or a feeling or something that had been perhaps misunderstood, and this energetic movement of the heart going towards itself would say, this too is included. This too is what I am. You know, so, and that occurred within, right? And that occurred, of course, without. So things on the outside are seen more clearly for what they are, that they're not separate. So really it's a process of the journey of kind of like a reconciliation of all the things that we imagine to be separate from ourselves and outside of ourselves, including our own emotional states.
Mm-hmm. So when you hear the news and see the suffering in the world, and I guess in unity your heart reaches out and embraces everything, and and there's a, as part of you,
right, the immense upwelling of compassion emerges. It's almost like the molecules themselves get a feeling of being everything. So the suffering of others is your suffering, and the joy and the beauty and the pain and the sorrow. So all these seemingly opposites get, you know, the heart is the great unifier. So it reconciles opposites. Yeah. So that's what I mean. It's a beautiful time. So even though I was, you know, it's a difficult time being a single mom and navigating that, and being, I so delighted in being a parent. Really loved it. So I had that going for me, even though I was exhausted, you know, at times. But there was this opening, this inner opening and welcoming. You know, I would say the unity state is one of allowance and of welcoming of all that's arising. So even the uncomfortableness and that which may seem scary, you know, even the survival, all of it starts to get integrated and open to, you know, this too.
So it's like the resistance stops. And there is like a constant thy will be done or surrender.
Right, thy will is my will. So so the unity is the seeming duality of life collapses. So thy will is one will.
Yes.
It just becomes one will. So you can't really see it as being a mistake, even if it's difficult, you know, whatever's coming up.
Yeah.
So that resistance that
it all comes out of the oneness.
Yeah, and you are that. So it comes out of the oneness, and it's not like the mind is trying to understand it, and you know, it's not a coping mechanism.
Yeah, the mind keeps quiet.
The mind is at rest, and and that which is remaining, the conditioning, right, in the body and the mind. Because everything doesn't just immediately start to, you know, fall into rest and that pure allowance.
Yes,
it needs to go through a process, which, you know, I call embodiment, of gaining understanding of all the things that it doesn't understand, all the areas that it's pushed away in innocent misunderstanding.
Yeah. And then something, and that process that lasted about 9 years.
Yeah.
And then something completely radical happened to you. And you were surprised yourself.
Yeah.
So tell us about that. What was the moment like when you realized?
Well,
you were gone.
So unity at this point was so not normalized. You know, 9 years of living in unity, you go through many, you traverse the whole, the landscape. I would say it's a journey of understanding, gaining understanding how we are totality. And that takes a good while.
Yeah, you learn to navigate with it and live with it, and
including, I would like to say, including the separate self. So whatever remnants may be there that are in innocent misunderstanding, that too gets to be seen as part of the whole. And so that's a beautiful time, you know, that nothing is made wrong, and that even that arising of the me or the separate self or what we call ego is completely included and welcomed. And then anytime you include anything, it transmutes. So it's a real period of time of transmutation. And towards the end of that unity phase, if someone had asked me, can you find yourself? Is there, you know, can you find Susanne? Is there, you know, a person there? And I would say, can't find it. And that would be, you know, the truth of my experience, that I couldn't find Susanne. You know, that energy was so diffused. I like that word diffused and boundaryless, that it didn't feel to have any more of a, a touchstone of, you know, that kind of just that sweet personal self that you can kind of find in yourself, even if you can still kind of feel the trace of it in unity, but it becomes more and more diffused, and you become more and more used to it. And I think it's a generous time, a generous phase, because what's happening is the separate self sense is disintegrating, and another way of being, another type of functioning is getting on board during that time. It was kind of like a changing of the guards. And so towards the end of this unity phase, if someone had said, what is it like to be in unity? And, you know, I wouldn't be able to describe it the way that I had in the beginning. like you feel one with everything. And when you look at a tree, you know yourself as that. Everything I looked at, I knew myself as. And that becomes normalized, right? It's like learning a language. It becomes your natural way of being. And so I wasn't aware that something else was coming. I'm trying to think. As far as I was concerned, it just this naturalness was just and becoming more and more at ease with being the totality was just going to be the rest of my life. But what happened is I became ill, and I was really challenged on a kind of a survival level. And what I feel is that some separate self-sense had been still residing in the body, in the form. It wasn't in the mind anymore. It certainly wasn't in the heart. So for me personally, where else could it still be living? And I wasn't looking for it. I wasn't even aware of it because it was so kind of subdued and diffused. And like I said earlier, like everything was included. So the sense of, any kind of fear that may have remained in the body of being, an animal kind of fear of survival.
Yeah, when we normally also feel the sense of self in contractions in the body.
Mm-hmm. And like contractions.
Yeah, like pain or muscle tension or
right, yeah.
We can feel it in our nervous system, traumas. So what you're saying, you were already at that point so clear, but not completely. It still was something there, almost undetectable.
Yeah. I would say that because the whole journey of unity is one of inclusion. Yeah. So that too was included.
Yes.
So any kind of like animal fear of the body, like I had become very sick. I had gone to the emergency room a few times, and there were the place I was living in was part of what was making me sick. So I couldn't live there. So home, health, and then my daughter was 16 at the time, and she had to go live with her father for a while, which was fine, but I missed her. And so I had this kind of like this, a crisis. Yeah. It was a home, health, and parenting kind of crisis. And I think it hit me on this level, on the place of survival that maybe wasn't completely freed up. Mm-hmm. But I was unaware of it, and also at ease with however things were displaying themselves. I didn't ever consider contractions as being a problem. It was nothing that was taking me away from the sense of oneness, of totality. Mm-hmm. Nothing shook it. And even this didn't necessarily shake it, but what it revealed was something that wasn't completely liberated, I'm guessing. So it was form itself that had taken on identity. And I'll get to that in a minute, but I'll walk you through what happened. Mm-hmm. So, so I went to go stay at a retreat center for a week. And I was taking a walk in nature. It was a very beautiful place. And I was deeply meeting this unsettled place inside. And I had trained myself during all those embodiment years of whenever something arose, there'd be a movement of the heart just automatically, just like when a child's crying, you go immediately to soothe it and be with it, right? So it was this natural movement of the heart to go towards this unsettled inner experience. And there was this moment inside of...
So did you experience this anxiety? What was the experience?
Sadness.
Sadness.
Just kind of like a kind of one of those koan moments of there's nothing I can do. Mm-hmm. It was sadness, but it was more like this. The truth was there was nothing I could do about the situation. It is what it is. Mm-hmm. And it was like the body got it. The body kind of finally just sort of settled with, how I had spoken about the mind was looking for itself in the very beginning, years ago. And then the heart realized it is everything. Well, this was like the body in its survival kind of came to this koan moment, an unresolvable paradox moment, right? That's just kind of, there's nothing I can do. Instead of trying to, I wonder what I could do to help my body, to help my situation, right? It just stopped. Everything stopped in the body. And so there's nothing that can be done. And it just something unlocked and just fell.
Freed up.
And freed up inside. And it felt like the survival instinct itself. Of course, there's still survival instinct. We can, in terms of not being run over by a
healthy
bus.
one.
A healthy one.
Yeah.
But the one that was maybe the psychological self or the identity that had, the identity that had fused in with body and with survival got released. And identity, as you know, is formed very young. As a 2-year-old, we're building identity. Mm-hmm. And so we begin very young feeling like I'm the one that's doing everything. I'm the one that's learning to walk, and this is my name, and I'm eating. Remember the whole phase of you have grandchildren. Yeah. Look at me. Yeah. It's such a wonderful, powerful, enlivening time.
Yes, that's right. And you explain it so well, how suffering arises of the mind's ability to look at itself.
It looks at itself, yes.
Yes, it's me. And, in our culture, we're taking constantly even a selfie. Cannot get enough at looking at us. So it's looking, and that's how it's the duality is really created. So that collapsed.
Right, and so that is it's memory, it's in the mind and conditioning, but it's the conditioning that's also contained in the body.
Yes.
So the me function that I'm the one that's doing, the doer.
Yeah, yeah.
It fuses into the body itself, into form.
Yes, yes.
And no one had ever told me this.
Yes, yes.
Really, I had never heard this.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying people it hasn't been said, but it wasn't known to me. Of course, all the embodiment and all that was very physical and very much body oriented. Mm-hmm. But the fact that the me is fused in and needs to also have its liberation. The body has its own liberation. That's what happened.
Yeah.
And that was
so that happened in that moment when you were walking in nature.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so when that happened, what happened?
It's so good that I had training to deal with altered states of consciousness. Because, the me falling away here, that's pretty mind-bending and produces a lot of a dimensional shift, which can create, it's a different way of perceiving.
Yeah.
And then the unity of the heart, that whole period is an altered state of consciousness in the sense that it's a different way of perceiving. It's a different dimension.
Yes, yes.
And so this was yet another one that, like I said, I wasn't anticipating. And so the self, that which is reflecting on itself, falling away completely from the whole organism and being left with purely experiencing without any kind of intermediary, without a filter. See, unity consciousness is a filter. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And that's the part, even though it was so thinned out and at the very end of that phase, which was so diffused, it still was a tiny bit of a filter lying between myself and that.
Yes.
Everything.
Yes.
I wouldn't have known that until this occurred. Mm-hmm. And then it was just like, bam. life being directly experienced without any filter, without any self-sense, even that of being the divine. The self-sense of unity is divine, right? Even that is a bit of a thin film of separation lying between yourself and purely being life.
Yes.
Purely, there's no more you and that, even as a unity phase. Just life, just being life.
So the experiencer and the experienced become one.
Right. Yes. And you had said that before to me, Renate, in our last interview, I would say that's what my experience. And that's what's so interesting about this.
Yeah, and that's very raw. You must. How is that?
Well, it took me four months to adjust.
Yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes still it's not like there's me adjusting, but it can just be, it isn't about, I don't know, well, maybe there's adjustment. Maybe it's the organism still adjusting. It is raw. It's well, everything, all the senses are really on board, and another type of intelligence we can get to, another type of intelligence.
Yeah.
Along the way is being lived in different types of ways, right? The heart intelligence is a different kind of way.
I actually can see that in your writing. From when I read posts on your Facebook or I can feel such a difference over the years from where it's coming now.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for me, that's the universal intelligence. It's completely open and coming through.
Ah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's nice that you use that word universal, because I would say that in unity, it's divine. It's the divine coming through. You as that. You as the divine. And now
it's more a holy feeling.
Now it's a universal.
Yes.
Universal. Prior to this, it was more like the individual soul was still knowing itself as that. Mm-hmm. And now it's more universal soul. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you asked me what it was like when it happened. And I'm not saying that this is going to happen in this particular way for other people, but everyone is going to be different and how the response.
And it seems, Susanne, that this is not an experience you have and you had, which is very common. Normally, people kind of stop in unity consciousness.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. I think that's pretty much where most literature of like the mystical writings are coming from.
Yes.
I certainly felt like this was it. I not that I am. I'm open-minded, knowing that it's endless, but it's because I could tell that it was still, things were still opening and opening. Mm-hmm. So it's endless in that way. Mm-hmm. But I didn't know that there would be a whole nother kind of dimensional shift coming. But yes, I would say that most writings and most teachings are coming from the unity phase, and there are, it grows. It's kind of like, I think unity occurs. Let's say it's an opening, and that opening, it opens up more and more and more and more to include more and more of itself and know itself as more and more of the totality. That's that movement of unity, and it's just this, you can feel the progressiveness of it, This is completely different. Yeah. So yeah, it's amazing we can even talk about it. And
the experience is also called no self. And that's actually something quite frightening. And I just want to tell a little something which happened to me yesterday, just sitting in front of you and just talking about ourselves, really. And there was this moment of silence, and I just looked at you, And I could feel fear arising because it was completely empty. Yeah, there was nobody looking at me.
Yeah.
Actually brings tears to my eyes. Yeah.
Yeah. What are the tears?
I don't know, just the enormity of it, the totality. And, also the thought of I never ever will return to how I was.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or is there something in you which could return, or would you like to return?
Well, I find it very interesting how quickly we seem to, in the spiritual world, how quickly we seem to want to get to this place, right?
Yeah. I know.
And then there's no one there. Mm-hmm. There's no one there in the end. I don't think there's anything to return. But as I expressed to you yesterday, I feel like life is very conservative in its nature, in that it conserves elements. It reuses in that kind of way, in a conservation kind of way. It doesn't waste.
Yeah.
So energy is recycled. So what returns is energy, and it'll be used by life in the way that it sees fit.
Yes.
But that little bit of individualness that is left in the unity phase, that just enough to know itself as unity.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Is gone.
Yeah.
So it's like the soul, the jiva, is has fulfilled its return function.
Yeah.
Something's born, it lives itself out, it returns.
And you said when the karma wheel comes to its end.
Yeah.
That's what's happening.
Yeah. I think that's it. It's kind of like,
so all the identity from the body, from everywhere is gone.
Yeah, and just what's left is conditioning.
How would you call yourself? What is sitting in front of me? Are you a human being?
There's humanness, there's delight, there's, sadness, there's hunger, right? Mm-hmm. There's joy, there's preferences, there's all that stuff is there. All that what's been learned. That's so nice that it happens at a time when we're really, hopefully it'll happen for people at a time where they're able to seamlessly integrate this as a functional system. Everything is on board. I mean, you live how many years, right?
Yeah,
it's going to be on board.
Yeah, but you also said you had to relearn certain things, like you didn't know how to put the fork into your mouth and how to do certain tasks. You had to.
Well, it wasn't really, Renate, it wasn't relearning. It was more like the mind had to get, the body, mind, one thing, had to just really kind of get, This is a nice word, grok is when you get something.
The doer is gone.
To grok that it can do all these functionings without a doer being within it.
Yes.
Because we don't realize how much like driving,
it goes automatic.
It goes automatic. So functioning is already on board, and the bringing the fork to the mouth is on board, right? Mm-hmm. It doesn't need a doer to do that, because we've been
trained.
The body's conditioned.
Yeah.
So when the doer falls away throughout the whole system, which, in a graceful way, for me, it took a long time. I mean, really, almost my whole life, in a way, has been preparing for this,
Yeah.
It took a little bit of time to kind of just get on board, yes, the fork is still coming. I just remember the fork coming and going, it doesn't need any doer, and the cup and the, all that. So it took a little time to integrate it for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So would you say Susanne moved out and God moved in?
Yeah, but I would have definitely said Susanne moved out, and she had been moving out for a while.
Yeah.
And there was just a little package left in the living room.
Yeah.
And that package was control that was fused in with survival of I've got to hold this together, you know. And I think we all have our particular reasons, and mine was probably related to my children. I've got to hold this together. Maybe this package would have gone before. You know, my daughter was, you know, growing up. But, you know, so this kind of bundle of that I didn't realize was still there in form. I got to hold this together because, you know, everybody has their reasons.
Yeah, yeah.
And mine probably was parenting, you know, wanted to be there.
Yeah.
So that makes total sense.
Yeah.
And luckily can still completely function, you know.
That's right. It's also the intelligence of of nature. Yes.
And we wanted to touch on the sensory.
That's right. So that was so.
I won't rush you.
So let's go to the body.
Okay.
There's so many other things.
Well, go for it. I can always come back.
No, but you like it here, do you?
Yeah, let's just stay.
Just stay. Yeah, it's just one other thing. You know, it's like you moved so completely into the now. That's like the past and the future is gone, and you are operating from the now. And it's also that memories or experiences after you experienced, they are fading away. You don't need that anymore because, as you said, this moment, the way you live this moment, or like everybody else, creates the next moment.
Yeah.
And the next moment.
Yeah. I like how you say that with like everybody else, because so much of what I'm living right now is like everybody else. It's just that it's not recognized. The no self is not recognized. Because the filters kick back in, you know?
Of course.
But coming back to what you were saying about the now, the memories, honestly, and a lot of people who have gone through dropping into the emptiness of no mind, no self-center of mind, and opening to unity after that, there is a whole phase of mind falling away, memory. Mm-hmm. It's, you know, it's like sometimes you kind of wonder what happened.
It's not called dementia or Alzheimer.
Right. So that's something that when I work with people, I really like to help bring soothing to their mind and body, and, you know, help reflect back, you know, that this is actually safe. It's okay. Yeah. That we can operate and function really well without needing to locate ourselves. Yeah. And when memories and mind falls away in that kind of way, you know, of tracking and that's okay. And sometimes chunks fall away, and sometimes some things come on board back again. Yeah. So, you know, there are different phases of the computer kind of letting go, you know.
Yeah,
so,
and that's one thing which is also I like to mention, is that there is no landing ground.
Right.
Yeah.
There's no landing, and within unity, the landing ground is totality. Mm-hmm. Is diffusedness. You become increasingly used to not being localized. Yeah. And to knowing yourself as everything. Yeah. So your whole reference softens. Yeah. And like your boundaries dissolve. So you're just more diffused, and you get used to being able to function and operate really well that way. Yeah. Right. But when this other thing happens where the no self is that word is referring to the self, that any part of the self that's left falls away, and unity is still an aspect of self, And it references, see, the all capacity to reference yourself, to reflect,
yes,
disappears. And when you are in unity, especially towards the end of that long phase, it's the divine reflecting on itself. I am that, right? Mm-hmm. The divine is reflecting on itself, and it's very satisfying. But it's still a movement of that self mechanism, the small s, mechanism, looking at itself, see? And you don't know that until that too leaves. Yeah. And when that leaves, that's what we're calling no self. That ability to actually look at yourself in any way and reflect completely disappears. And that's part of the integration phase for me, is there was no more feeler, there was just feeling. There was no more sensor, there was sensing. There was no more feeling unity, it's just one thing. Just everything disappeared of being able to imagine myself as anything.
Yeah. There is a quote I always loved from Jesus, which I never completely understood. I understand it now. I don't know where it is, but it goes something like, every bird has his nest, every fox has his hole or den, but I have nowhere to rest my head.
Yeah. Makes sense now.
So, Susanne, let's talk a little bit about the body. You say, what shall we do? What can we do?
With the topic of the body?
Yes.
Well,
to free ourselves.
Oh, what can you do?
Yes.
To free yourself?
Yes.
Okay. Well, first of all, the way in is through love, right? And to learn how to welcome and love every aspect of yourself, including the body, right? And wherever tension or contractions, as you mentioned earlier, is located the separate self sense in the body, to open to that and learn how to embrace it. That's a movement of love. And when we do that, it reorganizes, our whole body reorganizes and learns to relax, and sink into its true functioning, which is to be free of the separate self sense. It takes a lot of energy to operate as a separate self, not only as mind but as body. It's exhausting to the system. Mm-hmm. So the path is one of embracing yourself as you are, and that is a function of the heart. So I would say, learn how to rest more and more your awareness on your heart. This area, the sensing organ that this is, it has a way of perceiving life, perceive through the heart. Perceive yourself, turn the perceiving towards yourself and perceive what's going on here, and then turn it outward and perceive others and perceive life, all that's arising via the heart, this intelligence center, and allow the way that you perceive from mind to start to more and more sink down into this intelligence center, right? That is the first step, really, for learning how to get the body and what the intelligence of the body is on board.
Yeah.
From there, you start to realize actually that you're you can start to lean more and more into being a sensing being versus a thinking being. So sensing through the heart, and then this whole intelligence center gets on board, which is the body, and that is one of sensing. You know, like a tree and like plants.
Yeah.
We have these capacities that are already functioning in everyone, but they're they're quite a bit dormant. So that we get this sensing organism on board, and it turns outward like, you know, a plant, without processing information through mind. So you get it. So you open to learning how to directly perceive life without filtering it through the mind, right?
Yes, that's true. But I'm just thinking, you know, this life is so fast. And everybody is so busy and stressed and automatic that you really need to make that as a priority and slow down to be able to do that.
Well, it's a love affair.
It's a love
affair. What do you give yourself to? Where are you placing your attention? What is it that you love? You know? And wherever you place your attention, you get.
Yeah.
You get more of. You know, you put your attention on something you're addicted to, you get more of that. Put your attention on being busy, you get more of that. You put your attention on learning how to perceive through the heart and become more of a waking up your sensing as being a sensing being without needing to interpret reality and what you're sensing, but just learning how to perceive directly and experience what you're sensing without filtering it through mind, saying, oh, I'm sensing blah, 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 which is fine, right? But can you get closer to it? Can you lean into what you're sensing more deeply, more intimately, without putting an interpretive layer over it? That's when you start to wake up more and more the body's intelligence.
Yeah, I like what you say very much. I know you by sensing you.
Right. Yeah, I know.
I don't know you through understanding you with my mind. I know you that way.
Yeah, and it's like you can get the belly on board too. It's a sense, you know, the sensing of the body, the belly, the heart. I think we all know each other through sensing, but I think that we have it kind of backwards. Then we filter it really quick before really acknowledging it. We go boom in the mind and override oftentimes what we're sensing.
Yeah.
If we sense sometimes that someone's like unsafe, you know, follow that sense, you know. Don't go into override.
So you're talking about intuition.
I'm talking about intuition through being a intelligence. Your whole, from head to toe, being intelligent.
Yeah.
It's an intelligent system, and learning how to welcome that, bring it on board. Yeah. So I know you by sensing you. That has tons of information in there. You know? You don't even have to access the mind, which, so in the end, actually, this all becomes mind.
The awakened mind.
Yeah, the awakened mind, awakened heart, awakened body becomes one intelligent center. Is what I'm saying.
Yeah. We are slowly coming to an end, unfortunately. There are two things I want to just read. You said, which really, the human being world of mind created dreams isn't sustainable. Just below the surface of our fabricated reality, there exists another world of earthly delights. Quietly, humbly, and with reverence, we enter her kingdom. I just love the way you say that. That it is a created dream we are living.
Yeah.
And what you say about entering the body and living through here, we can enter something completely different.
We can, and we can stop creating wars within and without, and we can stop creating the hell realms that so many of us are living in, you know. And it is a quiet and humble thing, because when you go out in nature, for instance, it's so itself, right? It's so quietly itself, and that's what we are at our core. We're the nature, you know, we're life. Mm-hmm. So it's actually really simple and ordinary, just like we always have heard that spiritual realization is in the end simple and ordinary.
Yeah.
As ordinary as, you know, a tree, but complete and whole.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not anything, I just want to say it's not anything exalted or spectacular. That's more in the undoing phase, you know, in the unity phase too, is more like hallelujah and spectacular, you know?
Yeah.
And this is more just our completely naturalized. It's completely naturalized without the layer of a separate self. But without that, it wouldn't know how to function in this way. It wouldn't have the humanity that it has on board.
Yeah, it needs to go the whole...
You know, there's still preferences.
Yes.
It wouldn't have that, right? Without any kind of journey through ego.
Yeah.
Through, you know, feeling like you are a separate somebody and developing that. We wouldn't have the same functioning. So I see it as a very intelligent experience and not a mistake at all. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's so mysterious, isn't it?
It's so...
Who figured that all out?
I don't know.
So, well, it was such a joy.
Thank you.
Being with
absolutely.
you, talking to you.
Thank you for inviting me back.
Yeah, well, you came all the way from California. Yes.
My joy, to be here. Mm. Yeah.
Well, thank you for watching Conscious TV, and thank you again, Susanne. And I see you again soon. Bye-bye.